فضلكم خذوا مقاعدكم وسنرحب بالسيدة تانيا فايون رئيسة وزيرة الخارجية السلوفينية وكذلك رئيسة الجمهورية الدكتورة ناتاشا بيرك موسار.
Thank you very much to everybody who came on this rainy afternoon to listen to three, or I should say to five, remarkable women. But the focus is going to be on three women who are waging a different kind of battle in the Middle East. They are not waging a battle with guns, but with their heart and with their voices. And their voices are voices for peace, for solidarity, for compassion. Before I invite them to the floor to have a little discussion with me, I would like to invite Ms. Tanya Fajon, our Minister for Foreign Affairs, to give us opening remarks. Please, Minister.
Hvala lepa, Peter.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good evening, Madam President, distinguished representatives of Women Wage Peace and Women of the Sun, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It is a great honor and pleasure to welcome you at today's event here in view of the tragic conflict in the Middle East, which has left an indelible mark on 4 generations, and especially in view of the current war in Gaza, I think it is high time to revive the talks of peace. Our guests today do not live in peace. They come from different communities, and cooperation between these communities has been very difficult due to political and security reasons, but they are united in the human desire for a future of peace, freedom, equality, rights and security for their children and the generations to come. Slovenia supports them in this endeavor. We deeply feel the pain of all the people of Israel and Palestine who have lost their loved ones, their homes, who live in uncertainty or deprivation, or who desperately wait for news of their relatives and friends who are held hostage or imprisoned. The whole world is witnessing the growing number of dead and displaced, the devastating humanitarian situation in Gaza, where the consequences of the lack of food, water, and healthcare are already painfully felt by the youngest, the children. For years, Slovenia has been doing all it can do to help, especially Palestinian children. Since 2009, we've been providing psychosocial support and comprehensive rehabilitation program, as well as strengthening local and regional capacities for these activities. For more than a decade, we've been supporting the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East. During my visit to the region in November last year and the various meetings I had in the region, I was able to see with my own eyes what is the situation in Israel and Palestine. The horrific aftermath of the Hamas terrorist attack in Israel and the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza as a result of the Israel-Hamas war. There is no safe space for civilians from military operations, and the West Bank is becoming increasingly unstable. The spiral of violence in the region is deepening and accelerating. I would like to underscore that for Slovenia, the protection of civilians is of paramount importance. We believe it is high time to draw up a concrete peace plan with a clear timeline based on UN Security Council resolutions. It must guarantee Israel's security and allow for the establishment of a Palestinian state. It is clear that to achieve a lasting peace, we must ensure coordinated international action based on mutual respect, dialogue, and understanding. Israelis and Palestinians have the right to live together in peace with the same dignity, rights, and freedoms as the rest of us. Slovenia began its UN Security Council mandate with the intention of protecting populations in armed conflict and for preventing conflict, which is why we have consistently called for respect for international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Against the backdrop of all the suffering of the people of Gaza, global public opinion has been clear. The war must end, and the Security Council must heed all these calls. It all starts with a ceasefire. Hostilities must end, hostages must be released, and we must ensure regular, safe, unhindered, and sufficient humanitarian and medical aid to the people of Gaza. Slovenia will continue to work for peace in the Middle East and to ensure consensus in the Security Council. Ladies and gentlemen, nearly a quarter of a century ago, the UN Security Council adopted a historic resolution on women, peace and security, which established for the first time a clear link between women and the pursuit of peace and security through a comprehensive approach, taking into account the impact of conflict on women and women's contribution to conflict resolution. Because studies have clearly shown that sustainable peace can only be achieved by involving all stakeholders in the process, including women. Moreover, they have shown that gender equality is a better indicator of the peacefulness of the society compared to democracy, religion, or GDP. When women have a say in decisions about war and peace, a crisis is less likely to turn violent. Women favor dialogue, building bridges, building coalitions, and raising issues that pave the way for peace. They pay attention not only to political and military goals, and economic and social aspects as well. The United Nations Security Council has repeatedly stressed the importance of women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in efforts to prevent and resolve conflicts, and to maintain and strengthen peace and security. This is what is missing in many conflicts around the world, including in the Middle East. Women are not equally represented among the decision makers on either side of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Security Council has also long been deprived of any information on the state of peace and security directly from women in the region. Slovenia supports the systematic inclusion of women in all aspects of society, including in decision-making. As a member of the Security Council, Slovenia will work to ensure that women are equally included among the rapporteurs on the situation when this is on the agenda of the Security Council meetings. Today, on International Women's Day here in Slovenia, we are not hosting women, politicians, negotiators, or leaders of the Israeli or Palestinian sides who have a say on decisions of war and peace. If women had a say, I firmly believe the situation would be different. But today we are hosting women who, against all odds, have raised their voices to demand peace. And despite all the loss and pain, they have reached out to one another in the desire for the good of all. I'm happy to inform you that Slovenia will support 2 development projects by the Palestinian organization Women of the Sun. Both projects have been born out of the joint efforts by Women of the Sun, the Slovenian office in Ramallah, and the Slovenian embassy in Tel Aviv. This news was just confirmed by the Competent Assessment Committee. Slovenia remains committed to resolving the dire humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip and other Palestinian territories. Today, a new public call has been published for NGOs to ensure humanitarian assistance between 2024 and 2026. This means that Slovenia will continue to provide humanitarian aid through its trustworthy partners. We will work towards peace and peaceful coexistence as demonstrated by the Women of the Sun and Women Wage Peace organizations. Distinguished guests, you cannot shake hands with a clenched fist, to paraphrase Indira Gandhi. I am pleased that we can dedicate today's meeting to women whose hands are wide open. Thank you for your attention and sincere congratulations to all women on this day. May the struggle for equality in society continue every day of the year. Thank you.
Najlepša hvala, ministrica. Minister, before I invite our guests to the podium, I think you already saw that we have a translation on your headsets. One is for Slovenian, 2 is for English, and 3 is for Arabic language. And now I would like to invite to the podium our 3 guests from Israel and Palestine. First, Manuela Rotstein. Then Reem Hajajreh. We practiced this surname for like half an hour, but I'm not a good pupil. And lastly, Enam Odeh. Please, Enam. Good evening, and thank you very much for coming. I'm not going to do lengthy introduction because I think it's much better to listen to them to introduce themselves on what they are doing, what are their activities, and why actually they produced so-called Mother's Call, which calls for peace in the Middle East, immediate ceasefire, and long-term stability. So my first question for all 3 of you is how? Why? I mean, how and why, and what was your motivation to, beside your daily jobs, beside your being mothers, wives, and so on, what motivated you to basically engage so actively in these 2 peace movements, Women Wage Peace and Women of the Sun? So maybe we start with you, Manuela, and then we continue with the rest. Please, Manuela.
So first of all, thank you very much for having us here and allow us to spread our voices, which are quite different, you will see, from the voices that today receive most of the media. My name is Manuela Rotstein, and I joined Women Wage Peace in 2017, and I'm now is a fundamental part of my life, my activism. The reason I am a peace activist is probably the fact that I don't have a choice. I live in a conflict zone. You know what that means. The political is very personal for me. In 2017, I decided to make a stand and join Women Wage Peace. I saw where the country was going. I saw our leadership, I would say, taking us in a direction that probably would take us to self-destruction. And unfortunately, that thought was quite right, and we are seeing that today. But more on a personal level, our society was moving in a more intolerant and less democratic stand, and you could feel it, because the conflict, when you are constantly thinking that you need to defend yourself, is quite incompatible with a liberal society, where a tolerant society where you want everyone to express freely their rights. So definitely that was that turn that our society was taking. It wasn't to my liking, or it wasn't a place where I would like to raise my daughters. And I joined Women Wage Peace because I want Israel to be that society. I don't want them to leave. I want them to stay close to me, and in a society that we can be tolerant, we can enjoy our diversity. So as a mother, I joined Women Wage Peace.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Manuela. Before I give the floor to Reem, let me tell you a little story which basically gives a framework of what we are discussing today. We had lunch today, and I don't know if you know, Reem just flew from Los Angeles, where she received an award from the Time magazine of being named Woman of the Year. So big applause. And she told me, or she told us, that of course everybody congratulated her, also Palestinian Authority, and by congratulating her, they said that, but Reem, don't forget Palestinian principles. And she replied, my only principle is that I'm a mother. Because, you know, we discussed a lot today, and I wrote down some words because they are really tough to swallow, I would say. Reem said that in the Middle East, in the last 75 years, actually, it seemed like the women were born to suffer or to watch suffering, and that the deepness or the depthness of pain is unbelievable. So Reem, what prompted you to basically, you know, stop watching the suffering and decide that you want to do something about it?
Well, first of all, a most wonderful good evening to all of you. I'm very proud to be amongst you today, to be amongst Slovenian people. Let me thank not only the Slovenian government, but also the Slovenian people for their continuous support to Palestine, to our organizations. It's something we cherish, and I regard myself being at my second home country while visiting Slovenia. What made me start my activity, which wasn't easy, as a Palestinian woman coming from a refugee camp, we were about 16,000 people living on a very tight area. We had to witness people getting arrested, people getting killed. And then having the idea of building peace wasn't easy at all. But I thought to myself, well, as long as we are isolated people, only a peace process would be able to guarantee our freedom. I mean, we can go on and we can follow the path of war and then try to find peace. And I also saw people, neighbors and friends whose sons had to join the Israeli army and who were killed during battles with the Palestinians. On the other hand, I am a mother, I have a son, and I didn't want him to join any battle, can get wounded or die. It hurt me, it hurt my inside when I witnessed people joining battles, and I thought to myself, I need to speak to the people in Israel, on the street in Israel, because since 2002, since the wall has been built, we not dealing with the settlers in a very direct manner. We often do not see settlers, or I thought to myself, well, Israeli people do not see settlers. They do not deal with army officers every day like we do. And when I saw that the percentage of rightist parties in Israel is rising, and I do not need to go into more detail regarding this present government in Israel. I needed to do something. I needed to take steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Reem. Enam, you said today that actually your suffering is double because you are an Arab woman living in Israel, so you understand the Israeli side and the suffering of what happened on the 7th of October. On the other hand, you are a Palestinian and Arab woman who understands what the Palestinian side is going to now in Gaza with all the humanitarian catastrophe. So double the pain, double the efforts to actually move something in the direction of peace and long-term stability. Enam.
Good evening to all of you. Well, it's true. I'm a Palestinian Arab woman living in Israel, and I suffer, as do my friends here, as do my sisters here. It's true I suffer twice, because I suffer if I see children or young men suffering in the West Bank, in the Gaza Strip. And on the other hand, I also suffer if my friend in Israel has to send her son off to the army. So we live in Israel, we live together as Arabs, as Israeli people, as Jews, as Muslims, as Christians, and we congratulate each other in our feasts, we celebrate together. So it's normal, it's natural that what hurts my friend, what hurts my sister, hurts me. That's why I started working for the Organization for Women Wage Peace for about 10 years now, 9 to 10 years. And to tell you the truth, we didn't have another option. It was either continuing killing or try to go back to negotiations, try to find the path of dialogue in order to find a solution, a peaceful solution. That is why I joined Women Wage Peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Enam, and also to Manuela and Reem. Let's get back a little bit to your mother's call. If you can explain a little bit how this initiative took place, and especially the process of actually getting the organizations from the Palestinian side, but also from the Israeli side, to actually agree on the language. Because, you know, we, the diplomats, we understand how hard it is to agree on the language, even among neighboring friends, but not about among people who are actually right now at war. So maybe, Manuela, you can start.
Yes. Our partnership here is a partnership that we need to nurture every day. We are coming from a completely different place, but we are committed to a common future. And that is not easy. So we know very, very clearly, we are not naive. We know that this is a difficult path. And when we started talks, then Reem will follow with more specific explanation. We created this new language for describing our situation, one in which we try very much to avoid blaming. And we make an effort to be forward-thinking, because we don't want the past to be a burden on our shoulders to construct, to build that future. So we will give you, on your way out, the mother's call so that you can see every single word was discussed and crafted to be introduced there. And Reem, please tell us a little bit about the process, because you were more involved than me.
Well, in regarding Mother's Call, it was an agreement joined by Palestinian women and Israeli women. And then we even managed to have women from all over the world. But basically, we had Palestinian women and Palestinian mothers and Israeli mothers who agreed that we need to go back to the table of negotiations, to dialogue, in order to end the killing, to end the shed of blood, and to end using our sons and daughters as rifles, as bombs. We agreed that we need a new language, a language which does not use accusations. Instead of using sentences like, "You're a Zionist state, you occupied me." We tried to move away from such a language, from such a wording, because we thought that such a wording would only complicate the peace process. And neither us as Palestinians would be able to move forward using such a language, neither do the Israeli would be able to move forward. So we saw that the present atmosphere back then was having two impacts. We had Palestinian violence having an impact on Israeli steps taken and vice versa. So we asked ourselves, how may we try to move away from violent language, from violent wording? So I thought, well, why not speak to an Israeli mother? Why not tell her how much I suffer? Instead of telling her, accusing her, "You came to occupy my land," she would answer, "Well, this is my ancestors' land, so I'm entitled to return to this land." But instead of accusing the other, we started sharing our sufferings. So after that, our relationship developed, and 2 days, and it went on till the 7th of October of last year. 2 days before the 7th of October, we had a great march from Jerusalem to the Dead Sea, and we called people, we called to peace. We told the media, we told the people that there is a volcano, this volcano might explode any time. And then we had the surprise on the 7th of October, which was a great shock for all of us. We had children being killed, we had civilians on the streets being killed, we had women being raped and killed. So I ask myself, so why didn't you hear our call? Why didn't you hear our voices? We told you that we have a volcano which might erupt any second. And we were there. We expected such an explosion. And things only deteriorate, matters only deteriorated. We have 10,000 women who were killed during these past months. We have many victims on the Palestinian side, on the Israeli side. We have children dying every day. More than 10,000 children died in Gaza. And all these incidents didn't change any of the opinion of the international community, because we are still there. Israel is receiving support. Palestine needs support, doesn't receive it. So I really ask you all, please support the moderate path. Please help us. Thank you very much, in order to fight extremism anywhere in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Maybe to put things in perspective so that you see how remarkable this achievement is. When the 7th of October happened, one of the victims was also a co-founder of Women Wage Peace. And I think Reem told us today that out of network of 3,000 women who are in the Women of Sun movement, 32 were killed during the Gaza raid. So basically you went through this suffering, through this loss, and still continued to cooperate, which is, as I said, unbelievable. And this brings me, to the next question. You said often that political culture in the Middle East is such that women shouldn't deal with politics. That for women, there is a place and a time where they have to be, but not in the politics. And now that you started to get a voice who is now being heard also in the international community, do you think that this might change, that the women are going to receive a piece of the table, or a piece or a stool at the table, since I think it was nicely put, I think by you, Manuela, that you are resilient in hope. I like this, that you are resilient in hope, and I think that, this is a nice wording on, and you're going to need it, basically. You're going to need it, as you said. I mean, the things that are going to move forward, if they're going to move forward, are going to need time, more than 20 years, 30 years, in order to heal all the wounds. But yes, is anybody listening from the political elites? Is anybody paying attention to your movements? Are they slowly getting you to the political table where the decisions are being made? No. You want Enam?
Yeah, okay.
After October 7th, the situation has become a little more difficult, also from a psychological point of view. Me, myself, I lost some hope in the possibility of striving for peace, and I didn't even want to continue my efforts in the movement or to reply to Mr. Jim. So we were in a very bad psychological situation. However, after recouping a little bit and bouncing back from these emotions, we realized that there is no alternative to peace. So our people is divided. There are some who believe in the peace process that should bring us to stability and to progress. And there is another part of our people who is rather stubborn and does not want the peace process. There is also a faction of our people who is desperate, doesn't want to do a thing, or thinks that he is totally powerless, doesn't know what to do. However, we need to continue with our effort. We have to stay the course, because there is really no alternative. And at the United Nations, there is the resolution 1325 that refers to the role of women in the peace process and in the peace negotiations. And we also request the engagement with women in the peace process.
I would like to add to that description that I feel very much identified with. We are all struggling with those feelings at the moment. Yeah, the activism is a way actually to try and not fall into desperation or really a feel of impotence, and that is very much what we see in our people today. Yeah, maybe if people were very cautious before, or not really confident that peace is possible. These days, those question marks are huge. Definitely we need to, we are coming from that place when we talk to people, trying to see where they are. Yeah, the 7th of October is a trauma, and people feel vulnerable. Wounds have not healed because people couldn't grieve. We are still in the midst of this war. The families that have their people abducted are also people that lost their loved ones. So that is what is happening today in Israeli society. And we need to be very compassionate and considerate to be able to influence, not coming from a place where, okay, you're wrong, look, this is the way forward. That wouldn't help. I'm every day at the square of the hostages, we call it, because that's where we ask for their immediate release. We ask our government to be ready to pay the price. And we talk to people, and we see the fear in their eyes when we talk about prices, when we talk about, so this will take time, we know. People are all struggling with those feelings, and we need to consider those feelings in order for them to be able to take this leap of faith, probably, and go and start the necessary talks for a diplomatic solution that in the end is the only thing that will rescue us from this feeling of impotence.
Thank you, Manuela. Reem, you told us you are a common woman, you are a citizen who is walking the streets of Bethlehem and Palestine. What are the ordinary people telling to you? Do you think there is hope after, all the wounds which were inflicted on Palestinian people and also Israeli after the 7th of October? Is there hope that this message of peace can at least penetrate to younger generation?
It is not easy at all to make the street understand that the peace process, it is a rescue operation for their survival and and to prevent actually their destruction. When I spoke to the Israeli street, I wanted to use its own language and not the one that would come to me naturally. I wanted to express my position in a way that it might not be straightforward, but takes a little bit of diplomatic circumvolution. I didn't say, you have to get out of Palestine, Palestine belongs to me. No, I cannot use that. I personally live in a house that hasn't seen the light of day, that hasn't seen the sun, because it is buried underground. And I would have liked to say to the Israeli women, I don't want to kick you out of your house, but I want to also preserve my own home. So when you speak to the enemy or to the occupying force, you have to use a certain language that you use comparisons and allegories. But when I speak to Palestinians, I use a different language.
I asked to, for example, to mothers, Palestinian mothers, do you want your son to die? Do you want your son to be wounded? No, of course not. So let's do something, therefore, and forget about all these elite and politicians who speak about preserving the fundamentals of our struggle. We have seen where this led us. So, we have to use a different method, finally. Because if we cling to our fundamentals, then we will remain on the street. So I try to use a language that my interlocutors can understand. Before, for example, I got a prize recently. I was mum about it. I was not really boasting about it, but some people told me, no, this is a very important award. You have to speak about it. You have to draw people's attention to it, because that you can leverage it. So this is what I started doing. So any process takes a time. So I don't think that overnight we are going to achieve peace, but we have to build it stone by stone, step by step. And this is the first step.
Maybe just a sub-question. What did you, Reem, what did you say to your son? Because I know that your son, was also, as all of the youth in the aftermath of all this crisis, was suffering, and of course, as any young man, he wanted to basically wage not peace but war. But you said that now he is waging peace. What did you say to him? How did you convince him that fighting for peace is a better thing?
The first thing that I told my son was, don't put yourself on the front line when you want to fight. Go to the rear. And he said to me, what do you mean? I said, well, you have to take a step back, to have perspective, because if you are too close to the deal, you will not see exactly, you will not see the big picture. So take a step back in order to understand and to have a better perspective. You have to know that if you die, you will only bring destruction. You will destroy yourself, and you will bring destruction to your land. But if you live, you can contribute to building peace and to building your society. So I brought to bear to him that he has to choose peace and life. So that was the meaning of taking a step back. So that was my entry point. And one of his friends that I actually helped raise was killed by the Israeli army. So he said to me, what kind of peace are you talking about? My friend was killed. I said to him, yes, fine, he died, but if you also die, what would be the benefit? Your presence is power in itself. If you use language instead of weapons, you will be able probably to have an influence, to be able to have an impact. And in the beginning, he was a little bit incredulous. He wasn't convinced. But little by little, he understood that his mother was telling him the truth. Because I made him understand that if he dies, who is going to remember him? Who are the people who remember the names of all the people who were martyred or died? Nobody. And so he will be just a number, a statistic. Yeah. Do you want to be a statistic among the dead or among the living?
As I say, mother is always right. Mother is always right. Maybe last question before I open to the audience, because I think they have a lot of questions they would like to ask. How can we help you? How can the international community help you in order for this voice to actually raise above, the voices of warmongering and guns and battles and so on and so on. As we heard from our minister, Slovenia, who already did a lot in terms of humanitarian aid to Gaza, will continue to do its best. We are going to support Women of the Sun and the projects which they put in place. But in what way can we support you more in order for this voice to come to the political table?
زي ما قلت احنا انتو حاليا.
As I said, you have already helped us. Our very presence here and your kind attention to what we have to say is a testimony to your help. We would like to be heard by the entire world. We want the world to know that there is a process in Palestine led by women who want peace, and that you have people among the Palestinian people who want peace. So thank you, because you have already done your bit. And there are other factors. For example, we have already a dialogue among the different factions of Palestine in order to bring together the different positions. We have a project that we work upon right now. The Jewish and Arab Palestinian women, and they work on creating a positive and conducive environment in order to bridge the gaps between the two people. And other women deal with the influence of religion on the division, and to see how we can use one to help in the other. So I would like you to help us in this respect, if it's possible. Thank you.
I would like also to add how your voice can really help us. The conflict for most of the people, and in the media in particular, wants big titles, is presented in a very simplistic way. And sometimes when we talk about ceasefire, or when they talk about ceasefire, they think it's as simple as you stop the war, that's it, there's a ceasefire. But that is not the way it works. If that happens, probably in 3 years' time, we'll have an even more brutal war. What we need to do, really, is bring an end to the cycle of violence. And that implies a lot more than stopping now the battle. It implies also, for example, that when you talk about the ceasefire now, which is incredibly urgent first of all, to deal with the terrible humanitarian state of the people of Gaza, and to release the hostages, which is also a humanitarian need. But when you talk about that ceasefire, we need that to be the start of a process that takes into account all our needs, the need for security for both Israeli people and Palestinian people, the need for mutual recognition for Israelis and Palestinians, for mutual respect, the need for the reconstruction of Gaza, because out of poverty, out of crowdness, we won't have any peace out of that. That is not good, not for them, not for us. So we need to consider all those elements in that ceasefire, for the ceasefire to be really the one that puts an end to the violence, or not just for the next 3 years. So I'm sure for what I've heard today from your ministers, your president, that people here in Slovenia are very aware, also from your past, what peace building means. So you can help us a lot, for everyone to understand what putting an end to the violence means.
Thank you, Manuela. I read one article yesterday, I think it was in Foreign Affairs, where the title was, I think, The Last Plan Standing. So, when all the options are going to be exhausted, we basically need the last plan standing. And this is, long-term peace between the Palestinians and Israelis. Reem, you want to add something, or we go to questions?
Well, I'd like to add one remark to the international community. I'd like the international community, as I asked my son when he was in the 9th grade, I told him, do not take one side of the conflict. I'd like the international community to look at both parties. So if you really want to help us, please help us to follow our path, to follow our initiatives, the initiatives of the Mother's Call. For us to be able to speak up, for us to be able to have an impact on the political leaders, for them to come back to negotiations, to come back to the table of dialogue, instead of providing millions of dollars for wars and for buying weapons. Look for peace. After the 7th of October, we had the Palestinian conflict, which exploded, but this conflict exploded all over the world. So it's not only us who will wake up in front of a destroyed land, also your lands will have an impact, will suffer from an impact. So come to us, help us build up our country. And I'd really ask all of you, speak up, think about matters, be aware that war doesn't get us anywhere, neither for Palestinians nor for Israelis. We'd lose everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these words. And now I open the floor for questions. Who is going to be the first? Please. Eva Tomic from the President's office.
Thank you, ladies. Somebody has to break the ice. Thank you very much for your presentations today. I'd like to ask in particular you, Reem, do you still believe, can we still believe in the two-state solution? Do you think this is still a viable, realistic option? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva. Maybe we take a couple of questions, if there is anybody else. Yes. It's good Slovenia is small, so I know everybody in the audience. Vasilka Pris from the Faculty of Law.
Yes, thank you. I'm a professor of international law. What I wanted to ask you is, since your organizations have been in existence for a while now, have the authorities on both sides, entered in any kind of dialogue with you? Any of the authorities in either Israel or Palestine, or the authorities of the neighboring countries? So I'm really interested whether you managed to establish any dialogue with any of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and the last question in the back. I mean, the last question of this round.
Yes, good evening. I'm Dr. Alenka Verbole. I'm also a professor of international relations and diplomacy. My question is, how do you deal with the pressure that I am sure you are exposed to? I think it was Rima who mentioned that recently her authorities said, well, you know, there are Palestinian principles, and she said, yeah, but I have mother's principles. So I want to know how you deal with that. How do you ensure also your personal safety? How do you ensure communication? I'm sure this is also a challenge. And I would also like to know, how do you reach out to other women? Because obviously recent events have taken a great toll also on your organization. So how do you see the future of your organization? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alenka. Okay, 3 sets of questions. Let's start with Manuela and then Reem and Enam.
So I will start with the question about whether the authorities are listening. And I would say that Israel is a fragmented country. And we are, our voices are mixed, and the reactions that we get in the political elite are also mixed. And from those parties then are interested in a democratic Israel, in a liberal Israel, we have a very strong allies there. We put a law, a proposal for a law, political solutions first, which demands from the government a proper discussion of critical, during routines and during critical moments, proper discussions and a serious attempt to use diplomacy instead of using our usual tool of war. And that law that we put together, the proposal, is in Parliament now and is backed by quite a few political parties. From the government, on the other hand, we always asked, because in the past, you see, was Begin from the Likud party that made incredible progress towards peace with Camp David, where with Begin and Sadat signed a peace treaty. So we don't think really is a matter of right or left here. It's a matter of leadership. And at the moment, unfortunately, our leadership is failing us. But we will keep asking everyone. We won't let it just there and no. Everyone has the obligation in this particular moment in time, if they want us to have a future, Israel to have a future, they have the obligation to pursue the diplomatic way, and in particular now, when there is a deal on the table, embrace it. That's what we are asking from our leadership. You need to help us in that.
Thank you, Manuela. Two-state solution, Reem?
Well, these are quite difficult questions. Well, the Palestinian people have a right to live in freedom, to live in independence, and to have a state within certain borders with laws, with an executive authority, legislative authority. And of course, all of you know that if you have a state within a certain borders, but if you do not have such a state, like for me, for instance, I have my passport, which I travel with, and it's not, you have, the passport is issued by the Palestinian Authority. So often, passport officers would ask me, but who is the Palestinian Authority? Where is a Palestinian state? So even the passport is strange, and I'm often asked, so why should the Palestinian people not have a state within certain borders with a democratic government, with laws, with an executive, with legislative authorities, with different parties? I mean, we are speaking about the suffering of people who have the right to live. Well, in regards to authorities and whether they try to start a dialogue or reach out to us, Now, if I needed the authorities at the beginning of my work, I wouldn't have succeeded, because I know, and everyone knows, that a change only starts from the bottom to the top. And I'm able to speak in a very normal language, a very normal wording to the people on the ground, to the people on the street. I speak to them in my own dialect. I don't use complicated wordings. And thus, I do believe, and I'm convinced, that the people would decide where the path goes. The people decide which steps are to be taken. And the Palestinian people needs to build up peace within itself first, because the Palestinian people have suffered a lot. They suffered much loss. So Palestinian people need to find peace with themselves before finding peace with Israel.
Thank you very much, Reem. Enam, question about personal freedom and personal security. And you said that you're living north in the border of Lebanon, where you have a lot of bombs flying all over your head and your house. How is it that?
الصاروخ ما بفرق بين عربي و
Well, a missile doesn't make any difference between a Jew and an Arab. So I live in the north of Lebanon. We have attacks from Lebanon. Of course, we are far away from the Gaza Strip, but nevertheless, we have attacks every day on our houses. It's frightening, and it sometimes even is enough to hear the missiles or hear the planes or the bombs and the explosions, and knowing that a bomb exploded, a missile exploded, that a house was destroyed, that people were killed. But we do not have another solution than staying there, than finding the way back to peace. That's it. Quite simple. I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Quite simple, yes. Quite simple. Okay, we have time for one more question. Please, sir.
Mitya Jager. In the past decade, there have been reports that peace movements, both Palestinian and Israeli ones, have been increasingly marginalized within Israel. And this, of course, also applies to women movements in this field. How do you see a possibility that this marginalization, that in the time of radicalization of policies on all sides is actually even more present, can be overcome? And do you believe that this fact is actually known enough worldwide so that the general public would actually be aware of the fact that there are also quite strong movements and forces that are developing different peace initiatives and that are advocating peace?
Thank you very much, Mitya. Okay, and last question from our ambassador, Blanka Jamnišek.
Thank you very much, dear ladies, and welcome to our country, which is peaceful. I've dedicated a lot of my career to the promotion of the rights of the children. And I know that you have very traumatized children, millions of them. So how do you deal with that? We have heard Rama how she speaks to her son, but I believe it's a much larger question, and if some project of respect for children's rights would be useful in your endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Blanka. Okay, we start with Manuela and we conclude with Enam. You have all 3 minutes to say what you would like to say about the questions which were posed. I know that you could talk for an hour, but we need to conclude. So, Manuela, please.
Yeah, regarding how strong we are in society, yeah, our movements, we're not as strong at the moment. And I hope all the work we are doing now, that we started to tell the world about this, and the world is really thirsty for a world of peace, coming from Israel and Palestine. So it's giving us this opportunity. We really believe that this will make a difference. So thank you for being a pioneer. We hope we can spread our word of peace and really become stronger and influential within our societies, so that we can put pressure on our governments together. Yeah, it won't happen very quickly. We need really to change the dynamics, probably an international conference, something that can definitely, you know, I was telling this morning that before Sadat came to Jerusalem, 70% of the Jewish population thought that peace wasn't possible. The day after, 70% believed in the possibility of peace. So when you hear, you know, optimism and hope coming from influential people from around the world, that can definitely be a game changer and can make our voice stronger. So, so we're optimistic, and we know it won't be easy, but it will happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Manuela. Reem?
Yeah.
Although, just to say one thing, basically, what does it mean that you're not as strong as you would like to be? I mean, at the end of the day, it's still 40,000
oh, yes.
mothers who are in the women wage peace. So this is not, you know,
we're not
it's a significant number. It's a significant number. Please.
I am going to reply to the ambassador in order to conclude what I have said. Among the different programs of Women of the Sun, we have the treatment of traumas. We haven't been able to implement them in Gaza, although we would have quite a number of traumatized people. And we hope that the war will be ended in order to be able to start the treatment of traumatized people. We would like to treat the women first so that they would be able also to treat their own children from all the traumas they experience daily. And this has to complement any political action. If you want to establish peace, you have also to deal with the human traumas. And then regarding the other question, I would like to give you an allegorical story, the story of the birds. In the forest, you have a lot of animals, but they all left, they all vacated the forest except the bird who was trying to take a bit of water in his beak in order to extinguish the fire. And me too, if I want to extinguish the fires, and if I take a little bit of hope and I bring it to the fires, I would like to be that bird that will extinguish the flames.
And then you have to call to all the other birds to come to your help. Enam,
Yeah.
last words.
بدي أعطي مثال على
I would like to give an example taken from our friend Vivian Silver, who was killed on the 7th of October. She was very active in our movement, and she lives in Gaza, and she was martyred. She was a casualty of the event that took place, and her children come today to help us and to collaborate with us. And they are also convinced that peace is the only way. And this empowers me, this inspires me when I see children whose mother was killed during the war, and because of the conflict among us, or between us rather, I take hope, and I see that it is not mission impossible. And in the Palestinian community, I see many of my friends who were not active politically before the 7th of October, who have become activists and who want to help, and they come to volunteer their help. And they ask me, Enam, how can I help? So we see that there is a bigger movement in the Arab community. People want to help and they want to do something for peace.
Thank you very much, Enam, and of course, thank you also to Reem and Manuela. I think our courageous women deserve an applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This means so much to us, really. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuela. And before we conclude with the session, I would like to invite our president, Ms. Natasha Pirc-Musar, to give concluding remarks. Please, President.
A very warm welcome to all of you. It is hard to give a concluding speech after such an emotional talk. It is hard to give any conclusion. And I was impressed because I didn't see or hear any blaming, and I was waiting for this to happen. But no, the three ladies that we have with us from Palestine, from Israel, and one from somewhere in between, and there was no blaming. I listened to you very carefully. One of you said that your mission is a mission of non-blaming each other. I believe you. I believe you because this is what I heard this evening. Nelson Mandela once famously said that if someone learned how to hate, they can also learn how to love. I can only ask myself, what is harder? Is it harder to love someone, or it is harder to hate someone? I don't know. I never hated anyone, and I do love many people. I still believe that there are more good people around the world, and those good people know how to and want to move things further. Maybe contribute a small piece, maybe then a bigger piece, or maybe even a mountain to move things forward. And the more people there are that believe that we can resolve conflicts in a peaceful way, the better the situation for all. But today is the International Women's Day. I also believe one thing. I believe that if we want peace anywhere around the world, women need to participate in the endeavors. Of course, it is not about women taking over the world. We are talking about feminism, equality, women's rights, and so on. I always repeat that women are not advocating feminism to deprive men of anything, but we are doing it because we want to ensure women have the same as men. Nothing more, nothing less. When we look at Israel and Palestine, or Ukraine and Russia, how many women were on leadership position to show their power, to show their vision for the country. I remember Golda Meir, Yulia Tymoshenko, and then, I don't know, I don't recall any other female leader in these countries. And just as an aside, when I look at the situation in Slovenia, the current situation in the health sector with an impasse between doctors and government and so on, there are no women debating this situation. I don't want to enter into political topics. This was not the aim of today's discussion. The ladies this evening showed us that debates can be held in a different way. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you've been doing for years. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for not hating each other. Although your sons or maybe husbands are fighting in the war. Keep up with your courageous work. Thank you to the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs for organizing this event. Thank you for giving the voice to these women to explain what they're doing, what they're thinking about. And thank you for the assistance that Slovenia will provide to these organizations that are working in the same spirit. Thank you very much.
Najlepša hvala, predsednica.
Thank you very much, President.
We conclude this Bled Strategic Forum panel. I hope you enjoyed it, but before we finish, I would like to invite Minister and President again to the podium, because we have a little bit of a little token of appreciation. It's 8th of March, it's Women's Day, so flowers are in order, I would say. Thank you very much. So please. Please, another applause. Thank you very much for coming. When you stop clapping and the photo opportunity is going to finish, I would like to invite you also to a reception which is going to be next door for a little bit of snack and something to drink. Thank you very much again for coming.